Alright, well, another thing, when Alan Watts, for instance, talks about things like enlightenment and realization and awakening and Satori and all of these things that many people, at least used to and probably still do, seek out. They want to find a guru and study Zen or Buddhism or any sort of thing like that with some guru, master, swami, yogi person, so they can say, "Oh, little grasshopper, yes, little grasshopper, now you understand. Oh, you grabbed the pebble from my hand, little grasshopper. Kung Fu." Um, and people have this notion, oh, there's this great enlightenment, there's this great secret that mystical monks are guarding these great secrets of life and reality, and these questions of what is the meaning, and blah, 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 blah. And we need to go to study some esoteric thing like this in order to find this great revelation of truth. And very often, apparently, it would seem that much of this study with these masters involves the masters trying to get you to think, well, live your own life and try to stop seeking this stuff, because the things that you seek are in things that you seek about understanding what it is to live are what you get from living, rather than constantly thinking about living, studying about living, having somebody instruct you. The real instruction is all this stuff, all the real enlightenment, the real revelation, blah, blah, blah. This is what people claim that they're seeking. And when I was a child, a mountain was a mountain and a stream was a stream. And then I became older and a mountain was not a mountain and a stream was not a stream. And then I became a master of it, and in the end, a mountain was again a mountain. And all this stuff. So the question is, what is it that makes people feel that they're so confused that they live in a world of unreality, and that they have to find some hidden secret to break out of? And my answer to this is that these so-called hidden secrets are not hidden at all, and they're not secret. They're right in front of your fucking face the whole fucking time. That's the problem. The reason that these fundamental truths of reality seem to people to be hidden secrets is because they refuse to look at them. So all the things that you're saying, oh, well, there must be a hidden secret to life, something that I'm missing. Take a look at the reason that you're missing. Most likely the reason that you're missing. Take a look at the attitudes and the belief systems that you have attached yourself to, or attached to yourself, or have allowed yourself to be sucked into, basically. Look at what are the belief systems that you've allowed yourself to be sucked into. And the way to find the so-called secrets that you think you're not seeing is to break out of this trap, break out of the shell that you're in. All your belief systems that you're living by that make you resistant to listen to any time that you have a belief system. You don't even think you have a belief system, but when you're resistant to hearing something that goes against, contradicts these notions that you think you're supposed to live your life by, very likely That's what's making meanings and uh, solutions to things seem to you to be a secret, because you've trapped yourself inside of this cocoon, this shell. You put this shell around yourself. You're unwilling to break out of the shell. So look at what are the shells you're unwilling to break out of. Look at what are the attitudes and belief systems that you are unwilling to break out of, that any time if somebody tries to break through, you say, oh my God, you can't say that. Oh my God, you're saying that. That's heresy. You're not allowed to say that. How dare you even think that? These are the shells that you're putting around yourself when you're saying, how dare you think that? How dare you even think that, or even try to say that into words? You're a bad person for doing that. That's what's causing the illusion of secrecy. And I'm going to just say it right now. It's right obvious in front of your fucking face. What is it? What is the belief system? What are the belief systems that are making meanings in life seem to you to be a secret? What are the traps, the cocoons, the shells that you have trapped yourself inside of? And you can tell what they are, because it's like I said, anytime that you say, oh, well, you're not, how dare you say that? How dare you think such a thing? That's when somebody's starting to break through that shell and you're resisting it. And take a look at American society. What is the biggest belief system that we're not allowed to criticize in the United States of America? I, are you even coming up with an answer? It's right in front of your fucking face. Uh, in case you haven't come up with the answer, it's all around you. It's what did the people who came to the United States from Europe come here? Well, fuck Spain. Forget. Fuck Spain. Just talk about England. Let's just start with England, because what we call the United States of America was initially, mostly and initially, an English colony. It was also a French colony and a Dutch colony. But for the most part, and the majority, and certainly the majority, is the reason why we're speaking English today and not French or Dutch. Although in Quebec they still speak French. But in what we call the United States of America, the main language is English, and now Spanish, of course, but I've already said fuck Spanish. Nobody gave a shit about them. In the English-speaking colonies. So, what do people come from England for? For the most part, or at least the ones that set themselves up as the creators and the authors of the society that we live in here, the people that were writing the laws, came here because of Christianity. They wanted to practice, and live according to their concepts of Christianity, most of which they felt they weren't allowed to openly express or openly live by in England, because there was laws. There were laws saying you had to belong to the Church of England, and the King of England was essentially your Pope ever since Henry VIII set himself up as the head of the Anglican Church. And people felt, and no, so because of that, because Henry VIII set himself up as the head of the Anglican Church and made it the law, because he was the king, he made it the law that everybody had to belong to his fucking church. And that if you didn't go along with Henry VIII's Anglican Church, you were called a heretic, and you were branded a heretic, and you might be put in jail, you might even be killed. And people felt the need to get the fuck away from this. And they wanted to practice their own brands of Christianity. And that was their notion of freedom. But this is what prevents people in this country from being able to identify Christianity itself as the problem. You can't do that. You can't say that. In the United States of America, you can't say Christianity is the problem, because then you're branded as a heretic. And these days, you're not only branded as a heretic, you're branded as a terrorist. Now, it's not enough to call somebody a heretic. Now the implication of calling somebody a heretic is that they're also a terrorist. Because you see, this whole so-called war on terror, complete bullshit, is basically an inquisition. That's all it is. The so-called war, America's so-called war on terror, is really nothing different from the Spanish Inquisition. It's saying Christianity is the one true religion, and anybody who doesn't go along and say Jesus Christ is my personal Lord and Savior is somebody who deserves to be tortured and executed. And that's what the whole war on terror is, just a euphemism for war on infidels. And the whole war in the Middle East is just a continuation of the Crusades from 1,000 fucking years ago. From a fucking millennium ago, 1,000 years ago, the fucking Crusades, where people from England and France went to Palestine, went to what is now Israel in the Middle East, and tried to kill as many Arabs, tried to kill as many Muslims, and they called them Saracens, they called them infidels, and they tried to kill as many as they could in their own country. People from England and France were traveling 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles to a country that was not their own to kill the people that lived there. And the same people that were the descendants of the people that have the same mentality now can't stop criticizing the state of Israel. They say, oh, Israel is so evil because, they kill Palestinians. So what were you and your ancestors doing 1,000 years ago? What you think that you should be so proud of them for? And when you hear about Richard the Lionheart, he's the great king of England who went on the Crusades. Fuck, if you really think of Richard the Lionheart as the great king of England, you know nothing about Richard the Lionheart. He was a fucking Frenchman. He didn't speak English. He spoke French. And he spent a sum total in his whole entire life of 6 months on the island of Britain. Richard the Lionheart spent no more 6 months of his life in England. And he hated it. It was rainy. It was always raining. He didn't like the English weather. He didn't like the English people. He didn't like the English language. He didn't speak the English language. Richard the Lionheart spent more time in prison in Austria or Bavaria than he did in England, where he supposedly was the king. Anyhow, we're supposed to think, oh, la-di-da, Richard the Lionheart. Oh, yes, yeah, Robin Hood, all the Robin Hood movies. The good, true King Richard. He'll be our savior when he returns from his glorious crusades. Well, what was he doing? He was going to Israel, or what it was called Palestine. He was going to Palestine and killing the people who live there. But you think, oh, what a great king. We should be so proud and respectful towards the uh, the history and the historical figure of Richard the Lionheart. And yet the same people that have this attitude say, oh, the fucking Zionists, they're going around killing Palestinians. How evil. At least the Zionists went to Palestine for the purpose of living there, trying to live there as peacefully as possible, but they weren't allowed to. Whereas the Crusaders went there not for the purpose of living there, but for the purpose just of killing the people that did live there. That was their intention. That wasn't the intention of the Zionists. They were put in that position of having to do it when the people who lived there weren't going to allow them to live there. And you can debate that all you want, but the people who are criticizing the state of Israel for supposedly being evil because they've killed Palestinians and been put in the position of having to, or feeling they had to, and it's a combination of both. In any case, the people that are constantly criticizing the state of Israel, but won't listen to any criticism of Richard the Lionheart or of any of the Crusaders, and they will use the word crusade as a good word of something worth respecting. Oh, this is a crusade. Oh, la-di-da. Oh, wonderful, we're engaged in a crusade. But at the same time, in the next moment, they'll badmouth Zionism for being evil. But they're using the word crusade as a word of something to be respected. When the whole purpose of the Crusades was to go to Palestine and kill the fucking people. Just fucking kill the infidels. So that's what we're engaged in now, and that's all that the war and terror is just a euphemism for crusades. And if you can't see that, then go into some Buddhist monastery or studying Zen or any of this bullshit, or going to Indians and talking about Hare Krishna and all this bullshit. That's it. That's the fucking secret. The secret's out. Nobody's allowed to say, hey, you know what? Christianity sucks. Because, first of all, that's so offensive, and we have freedom of religion in the United States. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion. Yeah, that's right. And you need to look at why the First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion. And to do that, you need to look at the history of why people came here from England and what they were trying to escape, the kind of state-imposed religion that they came here expressly to try to escape. And that's why in the First Amendment, one of the first things when they separated from England officially, they said they knew from 150 years of their history here, they knew it in their bones that one of the fundamental freedoms that we need is the freedom from religion, the freedom from a state religion. And that's why the freedom of religion was included in the First Amendment. But also included in the First Amendment was freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. Because when you don't have freedom of religion, you don't have, or if you don't have freedom from religion at least, you don't have freedom of speech, because you cannot criticize. If you have a state-imposed religion, you cannot criticize a religion without being branded a heretic and either exiled at best, locked up, or killed for it. That's why the First Amendment has to include both freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and they're not, that they are in a certain sense inseparable. You cannot have freedom of speech without freedom of religion. And you cannot have really freedom of religion without freedom of speech. And freedom of speech must, so the First Amendment must guarantee people to say, I have the right to practice my religion, and that's indeed you do. But the First Amendment, at the same time, in the same movement, in the same gesture, the First Amendment guarantees everyone else the freedom of speech to say, you know what, your religion is bullshit. That's it. Just to say that, your religion, and really, that's what it really comes down to. The United States of America. What really got people to come here? What got the pilgrims, so people we call the pilgrims, to come here on the Mayflower? Was because they felt like saying, Henry VIII, even though he was dead by that time, and his daughter Elizabeth was dead by that time, but they still felt like saying, Church of England, your religion is bullshit. And some of them were locked up for saying that. And they didn't have to say it in those words. They had, even just to say, I don't totally agree with some of the practices or some of the attitudes that we are required to believe by the state. That statement alone, as mildly and calmly and objectively stated as that, was considered an offense, was heresy. You could be locked up. You might even be executed for expressing such a thing. But to put it in more blunt manner, it's one way or another of saying this is bullshit. Heresy is a term, a legal term used to describe somebody in some manner or other saying that what we're expected to believe is bullshit. That's what the word heresy means, because heresy is a legal term meaning that you don't have the right to criticize. That's what it means. And going way back to the absolute germ, the absolute origin of Christianity itself. What is it? What's the absolute seed? And that's it. What's the absolute kernel and seed of the Christian religion itself? Well, it's Abraham founding the Hebrew religion. That's the beginning of the Bible. No, it isn't the beginning of the Bible. It's Genesis, so you don't know what you're talking about. So you should shut the fuck up, Robbie. Yeah, but the beginning of the Bible as a chronicle of human events. A chronicle of actual historical or semi-historical events. And don't start fucking telling me about Adam and Eve was the beginning, or Noah was the beginning, or any of that stuff. Because that was all mythology. And the point at which the Bible makes the transition from prehistoric mythology to historical chronicle is at the story of Abraham, which, for all we know, could also be mythological or semi-mythological. But it has, no, because the thing about Abraham is, well, we don't know. We can't know for a fact that Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or Joseph ever actually existed, but the chances are that they probably did. That's it. There's a good probability that the story of the Bible, beginning with from the story of Abraham, was to some extent a chronicle of the lives of some actual people who actually lived. We can't know it for an absolute fact, but there's a good probability that it was, in fact, that the story of Joseph and his brothers and his father, Jacob and his brother, and their father Isaac, and Isaac's father Abraham, there's a good chance that there's a large element of historical fact to these stories, especially the farther along, the closer in time to us that they go. So the farther down you go, the more you get into the story of, I mean, look, here's for one example. You can say, well, maybe the whole story of Joseph and his brothers was also mythology that was made up after the fact. Okay, maybe it was. However, how do we know the names of Joseph and his 11 brothers? We know them. We know those names because of the 12 tribes of Israel that were supposedly descended from each of those brothers. And each of those 12 tribes went by those names of their alleged ancestors. That's it. The 12 sons of Jacob were the alleged ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel, and those 12 tribes continue to carry those names, so there's a very good likelihood that, in fact, those 12 names, in some variation or other, perhaps, quite likely in some variation of the names that they've passed down to those tribes, nonetheless, there's a very good likelihood that the names of those 12 tribes were in some sense derived from the actual names of the 12 sons of that guy we call Jacob. And that somehow, almost as likely, maybe slightly less likely, maybe the father of those 12 ancestors of those 12 tribes was named something other than Jacob. Yaakov, maybe something other than that. Maybe. So as you go back further, the likelihood of what we have in the Bible being accurate, it becomes slightly less and less. But even so, there's a good likelihood that the story of Abraham was more or less an actual account of an actual person who actually was the originator of that whole Hebrew religion, which was the foundation of the much later Christian religion. Anyhow, the whole point I'm trying to make about this is that the whole origin of the whole origin of the fucking Hebrew religion, which is the foundation of the Christian religion, without which the Christianity would not exist, the whole basic foundation of the Hebrew religion is the story of Abraham and why he became estranged from his father. His father was a maker of clay idols for the existing religion it's the Sumerian religion, or whatever the religion it was. It was probably the Sumerian religion that Abraham was born into, some variation of it. And at a certain point, as Abraham became a teenager, he said to his father, "This is bullshit." And that's it. That's the origins of the whole Bible. The origins of the whole Bible was an expression of heresy by Abraham. Abraham stood up, looked his father in the face and said, "Your religion is fucking bullshit, and I've had it. And I'm not going to live my life. I am not going to waste my fucking life trying to conform to concepts of bullshit. I'm not going to do it. Fuck that." This is what Abraham actually, yeah, I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing in contemporary, modern, rude, considered vulgar terms, essentially to paraphrase the story of Abraham, as he said, "Fuck this bullshit." And that's the origin of Christianity. The origin of Christianity is Abraham saying, "Fuck this bullshit. I'm not gonna waste my life trying to conform